In the deepest hour before dawn, when the world hangs between dreams and waking, a chill slips through the air, as if something unseen has crossed the threshold between our reality and someplace darker. And in that half-light, a shadow emerges. Not your own, but something else, tall, humanoid, featureless, gliding just beyond the corner of your eye. It melts into walls, retreats when you turn your head, and leaves behind a prickling sense that you are being watched. This is the realm of the shadow people, silent silhouettes that haunt our peripheral vision and linger in the margins of sleep. In this video, we step into their world, listening to first-hand encounters that send shivers down the spine, exploring theories that strain our understanding of mind and matter, and asking the most unsettling question of all: what if we are never truly alone? The Midnight Watcher. It was late October 2003 in Columbus, Ohio, when Emily first sensed something amiss in her century-old Victorian home. She awoke around midnight, drawn from sleep by a yearning for water. Moonlight poured through the narrow hallway windows, painting the walls in silver and blue. As she passed the living room, her gaze flicked to the shadowy corner by the staircase and froze. There, taller than any man, stood a figure darker than the night itself. Its head bowed slightly, its shoulders broad. Emily's heart hammered as she watched it lift a long, slender arm and point toward her. The gesture was deliberate, yet devoid of motion, like a silhouette painted on glass. Panic surged through her veins. She shone her flashlight, flooding the room with harsh light. But the figure dissolved, leaving only the steady tick of the grandfather clock. Over the next week, it appeared again and again, at the foot of her bed, gliding past the kitchen window, lingering in the corner of her study. Each time Emily tried to call for help, her voice trembled and cracked. Each time she confronted it directly, it vanished as though it had never been there. Sleep became a battleground. She lay stiff as a board, willing herself not to blink, terrified that if she closed her eyes, the shadow would take one last step forward. Friends urged her to move, to change homes, but Emily stayed, compelled by the dread that somehow the figure was tied to the very walls that sheltered her. The barnyard silhouettes. 2 decades earlier, in the winter of 1974, Spain's rolling Castilian plains were cloaked in frost. Ranch hand Jose Lopez was making his nightly rounds at the family farm, lantern in hand, checking the cattle grid before retreating to the warmth of the farmhouse. The lantern's glow danced across the barn doors, and then froze when Jose saw them. At least half a dozen shapes clustered near the hayloft. He blinked, expecting livestock, but the forms were too tall, thin as saplings, with elongated limbs and featureless heads. As he stepped closer, the lantern light seemed to bend around them, unable to illuminate their contours. Jose called out, his voice echoing in the silent cold. No answer. Instead, the shadows glided forward, their movement fluid, like ink spilled on water. He felt an oppressive weight settle in his chest, as though the air had grown viscous. Desperate, he dropped the lantern and ran toward the farmhouse, heart pounding in his ears. When he dared to look back, the barnyard was empty, save for the scattered straw and the lantern's dim light, still flickering on the frosty ground. The next morning, neighbors found nothing unusual. No footprints, no scuff marks, no signs that anyone or anything had passed through. Yet Jose swore the shapes had watched him, their presence pressing in like the hush before a storm. The red-eyed visitor. Not all encounters occur in full wakefulness. Many arise in the liminal space of sleep paralysis, when the body is locked, the mind awake, and nightmares bleed into reality. Megan, a graduate student in Edinburgh, experienced this terror one December night in 2016. She awoke on her back, unable to move, her breath shallow. A cold draft whispered across her face, and she felt a soft scrape at the edge of her duvet. Her eyes darted upward, and there, inches from her throat, hovered a featureless silhouette. Its eyes glowed a malevolent red, and its mouth was stretched in a silent, empty scream. Megan's chest tightened. She tried to scream, to move, but found herself paralyzed, trapped in a waking nightmare. The red eyes burned brighter, as though feeding on her fear. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure dissolved, leaving her alone in the darkness. Hours later, as dawn's pale light sifted through her blinds, Megan lay trembling, marveling at the lingering echo of those crimson eyes. Sleep was no refuge afterwards. Each night she braced for the shape to return, to press those unblinking eyes against her skin. The hotel hallway. In the summer of 2019, business traveler David checked into an old boutique hotel in downtown Chicago. Late that night, jet lag shattered his exhaustion, and he left his door ajar to fetch ice from the hallway. The corridor was dimly lit, its muted carpet and wallpaper bearing the faded elegance of a bygone era. As he reached the ice machine, his flashlight caught movement at the far end, a tall, dark form leaning against the wall. David blinked, convinced it was another guest. "Hello?" he called, voice echoing. No response. With a nervous laugh, he approached, but the figure slipped around a corner. David hurried after it, rounding the bend, but found nothing. No silhouette, no footprints, only the soft hum of the air conditioning. He checked the hallway security footage the next morning. About 2:17 a.m., the grainy camera showed him walking down the corridor. Then, for a brief moment, a pitch-black shape moves past behind him, its form too dark to discern. David froze the frame, but the shape didn't resemble a person. No clothes, no hair, just a void of shadow passing through the narrow field of vision. Across continents and decades, these encounters share uncanny similarities: dark, humanoid forms that appear just beyond sight, a sense of being watched, the shapes dissolving when confronted directly. What then are the shadow people? The tricks of the mind theory. Skeptics point to psychology. In low light, our brains hunt for patterns. A curtain, a coat rack, a trick of light on a wall can morph into a human silhouette in our peripheral vision. Stress, fatigue, and sleep deprivation exacerbate these misperceptions, particularly during sleep paralysis, when our minds hallucinate and our bodies are locked in place. Yet this hypothesis struggles to explain the consistency of reports. Glowing eyes, uniform silhouette, the oppressive sense of presence that words alone cannot fully capture. The interdimensional visitors theory. Paranormal investigators propose that shadow people slip through cracks in reality, entities from a parallel dimension brushing against ours. In this view, they are neither human nor ghost, but something utterly other, their vaporous forms unable to sustain direct attention in our world. This would explain the fleeting nature of encounters, the blurred outlines, and the failure of cameras and flashlights to fully illuminate them. Yet such a theory challenges our understanding of physics and remains firmly in the realm of speculation. The spiritual echoes theory. Some cultures believe that shadow people are the spirits of the departed, souls trapped by trauma or unfinished business. Much like residual hauntings at sites of tragedy, these silhouettes could be echoes of intense events imprinted on the very fabric of space. They watch, but rarely interact, as if replaying a loop only they can perceive. This theory gains strength from reports clustered in old houses, hospitals, or battlefields, places heavy with history. But it cannot account for daytime sightings in nondescript locations, nor the clinical oddities of sleep paralysis episodes. Jung's collective shadow theory. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow archetype, the hidden, repressed aspects of our collective psyche. In this light, shadow people are projections of our deepest fears, shaped by culture and personal trauma. They appear when we stand at the edge of fear itself, giving form to the intangible darkness within. This approach unites psychological and spiritual explanations, suggesting that these figures are both within us and outside us, a manifestation of the boundary between conscious and unconscious, reality and imagination. As the theories unfold, one truth remains clear. Shadow people resist neat explanations, slipping through the nets we cast in search of understanding. They dwell at the edges, in peripheral vision, in twilight, in the moments when sleep and wakefulness overlap. They remind us that our experience of reality is fragile, built on perception and interpretation. So the next time you find yourself in a dimly lit room, pause at the doorway of a silent hallway, or wake in the paralyzing grip of sleep, listen for the faintest whisper of movement. Watch the corners where the light fades and shadows pool. You may see nothing, but you may feel the weight of unseen eyes, glimmering in the dark. Because some mysteries endure not for lack of evidence, but because they remind us how thin the veil is between what we know and what we sense, between the light we trust and the darkness that watches back. In the dim glow of mystery, we find connection, And in that connection, we discover that the unknown can be more compelling than any answer.